say very good. Thank you, recording lady. We'll start with GMA. GMA is probably the easiest test that we have taken and probably the easiest to administer. The instructions are very clear and mostly it's a mental ability test, like an IQ test, right? So it's scoring mechanism is also very simple. So you kind of know the questions. It's either sequence of numbers or alphabetical orders or understanding the simple grammatical structure of language and things like that. So the questions will again, yesterday, like the thing we did, we will come back to the questions again, but you kind of know the questions you have attempted. Anyone who has not taken the test so far? Hopefully, no. Everyone has some experience with the test. So no worries. So in case we have, we'll again come back to the questions if we have any questions about the questions as such. So it will be comparisons or sequences or simple maths, things like that. So kind of problem solving questions or kind of context comprehension kind of questions. That's what generally comes in a GMA test. And how do you score it? Every single question have 4 or 5 answers. In this case, 5 answers. Only one of them will be correct. So if the person got the right answer, you give it a mark of 1. If wrong answer, no marks. As simple as that. There is no upgrade or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scales, nothing. 1 or 0. It's a binary marking system. And at the end, you sum up all that and you get your final score. As simple as that. Very simple scoring mechanism. Let me try to rotate this again. Okay, nice. Not helping me a lot. There you are. Okay. So this is the scoring sheet. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So you have a total of 100 questions and maximum mark that you will get is 101, right? Everybody already sleeping? Yes, good. I'm so good at it now. So the maximum marks is 100. The minimum marks is, yeah, wonderful. Minimum mark is 0, but everyone will get something like, let's say 50 through 100 or whatever, or maybe 30 through 100 or whatever, depending on how long ago was your last communication with school notebooks and things like that. Because some of the questions are very simple math, some of them are like, or people who comes just out of college might be scoring the maximum in general. Anyway. So you are given an answer key. It says for each question which is the right key. Looking at that, you compare that with the whatever score the subject has given, and that gives you a pretty easy way of scoring it. Now the only notable portion of scoring mechanism is this tables. What is it? The centile norms and the grades. So if you get your marks in these brackets, so if you get a mark of 16 to 21, your percentile is 2. What does that mean? I'll come to that. If your mark is again big mark, 72 to 76, your percentile is 90. That means if 100 people takes this test, if you fall into this bracket, this many people are below you. So you are above this many people, something like that. That's what a percentile score means. So if you are getting something like 60, you are already above 70% of the population who will take this GMA test. Okay, and if you are taking and getting something like 84 plus, that means you are in the small bracket of top 3% of subjects. So a generic IQ test, and your IQ is awesome, like Sunita's, if you are somewhere in this range. Then you also have grades for intelligence. So if you are against a score, here also is a score. Percentile you have seen, how many people are above you or below you. And intelligence grades, just like that. If your score is 85 plus, you are deemed to be very superior in terms of your grade. If you are someone like me, so 0 to 17, you have a problem. Hello? Say it again.
We agree.
Yeah, I know. So you kind of get the full idea. So any questions in these two tables or the scoring mechanism? This is probably the simplest one we can do, but still you can have questions. Any questions, please? Anybody? I'm getting really good at teaching this kind of stuff, or I'm really screwing this up. Somebody ask something.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Okay, now we'll go to the specifics for the exam. What would be the specifics? What are the materials? How do I administer the test? And mainly there are instructions. So how much time can be allocated? You can definitely think of it, right? You cannot give one person half an hour and other person 2 hours to do it. So everyone should do it in the exact same time period. And generally in IQ tests, you have to be fast to get a good score. Means the amount of time usually allocated is just where the brightest students will be able to score something like 94, something like 84 in the full allocated time. So even if you have 100 of them, 100 questions, something like 80 to 90 is what the best students are going to score. Okay, so that means the time allocated usually is going to be, let's say 15 seconds per question or something like that. We have 100 of them. That means what? 15 minutes for per question for the entire 100 one. So 15 seconds per something like that. So we'll see what is the time allocated. We'll see any specific instructions to follow, etc. in these handwritten my nightmare papers. Let's see.
आप बोलेंगे तो निकालेंगे, नहीं बोलेगा तो सही रहेगा.
That's a good idea. Who is that?
बोलेंगे तो निकालेंगे, पर पहले अपने आप को म्यूट पे डाल दीजिए.
हाँ. Thank you. Okay, now we'll jump into discussion first and then come back to the instructions. Because anyway, it doesn't really matter, but this is something very simple, so we can cover this quickly. You already have an idea of how this goes. So I want to jump here first, just to tell you that just in the same sequence of events that is following for all the previous 3 experiments, same thing, individual discussion. This is after we get the score, we are having a discussion about the score for that particular subject. Now, I'll read on. GMA is used to describe the level at which an individual learns, understands instructions, and solve problems. Verbal intelligence helps to analyze information and solve problems using language-based reasoning, which may involve reading, conversing, writing, or even thinking. We don't use the reading skill in this. We just we just use. We don't use conversing. We only use the kind of thinking and this kind of reasoning skills. The purpose of this test is to assess the general mental ability of the subject. This test was administered to, this is what generic statement that Soundarya is so fond of. She's not here, right? Hopefully she is not. This is this test was administered to the subject dash age dash years, who is a psychology course student, again another dash, student at dash. And we fill this in, and that's a standard way of saying it was administered. Usually we might also have a date on it, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. Table 1 shows the scores of the subject in general mental ability test. The subject has a total score of 45. So this subject, particular one, got 45. So when you look at 45 in this table, where does the guy fall? Somewhere here, 45. What was it? 35, right? 45. He got 45. So we go with the 45 to this table, and 45 is this. So he is average, and 45 here is here. That means 30 percentile of people are under him, right? 45 is in this bandwidth. That means 30 percentile people are below him, as well as since he is 45, he falls into which category, which grade? Average, correct? Yes, thank you. So his score is 45, 30 percentile is his percentile score, and his interpretation is average. Thus the subject's general mental ability is interpreted to be definitely average. The subject's percentile indicates, again we saw that, better than, he is at 30, that means 29 people in a 100 people sample is going to be below him, and 70, this should be actually, let's say 69, but 70 is also okay. 17 individuals are better than the person, according to GMA test. Conclusion, the subject's general mental ability is interpreted as to be average, which we very easily found from the table. Now we'll go into the specifics. Before that, any questions about this is pretty simple, right? Anybody questions? No? 3, 2, 1, going, gone. We'll focus on the specifics of, let's say, introduction as well as instructions now. So that might be something the Viva person might ask. What are the instructions that you will tell the subject before taking GMA test? It's a generic question that you can expect. So let's take a look at that, and we should be done. Introduction about intelligence being hard to define. I don't want to go through that because we have read it multiple times in multiple classes. Many people defined it many ways. Many people came together to define it. They all fought and had bleeding faces, and they all had different definitions over the years and over the centuries. So it doesn't really matter. Definitions are difficult to do. These are all bunch of definitions by different people. All of them actually have commonalities in them, like for example, abstract thinking, etc., reasoning, solving problems. Abstract thinking is common prevalently among most of them. Now, those are some very simple things you can read through. Now the definitions are the elements that appeared most often in these definitions. So these were all different definitions given by different people. The elements that appeared most commonly in all the definitions were: one is higher level abilities such as abstract reasoning, mental representation, problem solving, and decision making. Second, an ability to learn new things, of course, and adaptation to meet the demand of the environment. So these three were the commonalities, common effects in all the definitions. So everyone deemed that intelligence means having these qualities. Some people had some other ideas also, but these were most common among all the definitions. In 1986 survey, the most common elements were, again, it was done again, and we got a little different, but almost the same lines of thought. Higher level abilities like abstract thinking and problem solving. That which is valued by culture, very important. There's a little difference here because a person can be very thoughtful about, let's say, water irrigation pattern or something like that, but might not be very relevant for, well, wrong, bad example, but might not be very relevant for culture. But culture's tone came into picture in this whatever definitions. And executive processes, processes, whatever. So again, there were a lot of efforts to define mental ability. Then none of them were all inclusive. Different people still have different opinions, but these are the common denominators among all the opinions or all the definitions. Okay, more information here, not really needed for the specification of our test. I'm skipping through all this, you can easily read them. Let's get to the place where they are talking about the actual experiment we are doing. And that is all the way down here. Purpose: to assess the general mental ability of a subject and the group. We are not doing it for the group, we are doing only it for a single person, but it's supposed to be done for a group of people and then probably arrive at some conclusions. Anyway, using the group test of general mental ability by Jalota and Tendon. Plan: to administer GMA and determine the central norm, which is graded and interpreted. Interpreted, whatever this is. Materials. Can somebody tell me what would be the materials for this? Any volunteers? Now we have done it a few times. Pen, paper, eraser, etc. Right? GMA questionnaire, answer key, writing materials, stop clock. Now we have to see what should be the timing, because whenever there's a stop clock in the materials, we know that it's a time bound experiment. Keys and norms already given here, answer keys and data sheets and keys and norms. So these two goes hand in hand. This will be going to the subject's hands. They will change things in it. This stays with the experimenter. This can be reused multiple times, but this is one per subject. All this is clear to everyone, right? I hear yes for 5 people. Very good. Thank you. Procedure and building rapport, making them at ease, turn on the AC and all that. Remember? I'll read through it quickly. If you have any questions, stop me, please. Seat the subject comfortably in a quiet and well-ventilated room. Place before him or her the general mental ability test booklet along with answers and datasheet. The experimenter will read the instructions clearly and explain each example for practice. So we can give some examples for practice. So you can give a couple of them for them to practice. The subject is asked to clarify doubts, if any. At the start signal, the subject starts answering and the stop clock will be started simultaneously. Questions are answered one by one by making the correct, by picking the correct alternative in the answer sheet or data sheet. At the end of 25 minutes, so we are allocating 25 minutes for this questionnaire. So 25 means what? You have 100 questions. Each question will get 15 seconds. So people should rush through those questions basically. The subject, at the end of 25 minutes, the subject is asked to stop answering and withdraw the question booklet. The experimenter has to remind him or her of the time thrice during the test period, that is at the end of first 15 minutes and penultimate 5 minutes. So 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and that's it. 2 times. Where are the 3 times? There is little confusion here. So experimenter has to remind the subject of time thrice. Shouldn't, okay, thrice, fine. So 15 minutes and 20 minutes and 25 minutes once the time is up. So 3 times, 15 and 20 and 25 when the time is done. 3 times, cool. Instructions. This is the thing that you're going to tell the subject. This is a test of general mental ability. You have 25 minutes to work on it. This test has 100 questions. Examples of various types of questions will be explained to you before start of the test paper. All the questions are in simple language. In all cases, alternative answers are given and you have to simply choose the right answer and write its number in the answer sheet. Understand? The answer to each question is always a number. Okay. The answer to each question is always a number. There is only one correct response to each question and correct answer carries 1 mark. Time is rather short and very rare for a person to complete all the items. We have already spoke about this. So work as quickly and solve as accurately possible as many questions as you can. Again, here you can explain it, you can spend time on it, you can stress on the fact that time is way less. If you remember, specifically for family environment and things like that, you are supposed to keep a robotic tone, very low tone, so that people don't get any ideas about changing or biasing their questions. But here it's different because whatever you do, you're not going to explain any of the answers, right? They have to still do the test. So it doesn't really matter the tone or anything. You can, here you have enough freedom. So these kind of things you have to understand and you have to take a practical call. Can I be monotonous or should I be robotic in explaining, etc., etc.? That depends on the test also. In general, you should not keep any profiling for your vocalization. Cool. Any questions? I am going to pick names now when I ask something like that this time, so that I get some feedback. I don't know if I'm on mute.
I have a doubt. See,
Yes.
during questionnaire, if the subject asks any doubt, and if he's asking frequently doubts, because this has 100
Nobody
questions and
should
even we were
actually.
stuck.
Nobody
Oh,
should.
is it?
See,
That's
the
what.
minute he
Because
starts
you are going
asking
to
questions,
disturb other people if you start asking questions, right? In a closed environment, the first thing is you clarify all the doubts before you start the timer. Otherwise, other people will lose their time because somebody is making noise.
one more thing,
With
if,
some meaning of the word or grammar which they are not aware, still they have to do by themselves. They cannot ask
yes,
what it
they
They have
cannot
to.
means
ask
like that.
you they
Okay.
cannot ask you any question, because if you explain the question, you are basically giving them an answer.
Because I think yesterday experiment something like we have to make them aware of
That is
what
different.
they
That
are.
is family.
Okay.
See,
Okay.
yesterday's
Okay.
experiment is talking about emotions and all that, but this is about your IQ level or intelligence level, right? They're two different things. You can explain a situation, but you cannot explain a test, right?
I think one of the instructions should also be not to actually ask any questions that are there. They need to ask then and there itself.
Yes, when the
And
timer
also
starts. Correct.
and also one of the instructions should be that they should answer question. I mean, they should answer in whatever way that they understand. So there is nothing like clarification of a question. So whatever
Correct.
way that they could understand is the way that they should answer it. So
Agree with that.
in
And
case
one
if
more
they
thing,
are
Leela.
confused, they should leave it and go.
Yes, one more thing, Leela. Remember the number of seconds that you get for each question is very small, like 15 seconds. So you don't really have time for all that. So best thing to do in case you have a question about a particular question is just to ignore it and continue. Still, mostly you will not be able to finish all of them. That's number one. Time is very low. Number two is the language for this kind of test is going to be so simple, as simple as possible, so that language specific skills will not change your GMA score. Generally those apply here. Okay, time is too
Okay.
less
But
for
the
you to think
yeah.
over
So,
a single question. Number two, the
guys,
language is found to be very simple.
no matter how simple it is, you have a very short period of time. If you cannot finish the test within that particular stipulated time, you scored out of 100, but only for those answers that you've given, just like
Okay,
any other normal test that you've done.
shall we move ahead, Leela? Okay, moving ahead. Precautions. Make sure that instructions are clearly understood by the subject. Subject must not open the test booklet until we ask them to do it. Subject should not waste time on difficult questions. He or she can proceed further and come back to it later on if time permits. Avoid distractions, which is even a person asking question can be a distraction. Analysis of results. Score the answers with reference to the key. Total numbers of correct answers constitute the row scores. Convert the row scores into centile norms. Grade and interpret the scores with reference to table 2 and 3 in the manual. And then we do our wonderful table 1, where name is always initials. Score is what the subject scored. Centile norm is something that we just found out. Interpretation is again the second table, the grade. So this is not needed usually, but yes, since these people took it, we also wrote it. It's not needed. It's a standard thing. We already have it in our arsenal, so it's not needed to be added into our record book. But that's okay. These two tables are already the standards. So that's pretty much it. We have done all the 4 experiments now, and you are all set to fly through the exam in awesome colors. Who has a different question now or more confusions about this experiment or any experiments or in general about life? Nobody?
They ask this like 63 to 73, it is bright average. Will they ask what?
One
Like,
question.
can
They will
you?
give
Yeah,
you
go on.
that scale, no, that key and norm is given to you. You don't have to by heart it.
No, no, I know. But in Viva, if you ask, can you just tell me what it means 63 to 73?
No, they won't ask you things like that because it's difficult to remember the ranges, right? So normally in your keys and norms, it is given to you.
Yeah, I don't think they will ask this kind of tabulation kind of questions. It won't make sense. But some teachers can ask, you never know, but you won't be able to remember all of them. So there's no point by hurting them thinking that they will teach you something. You should know that there are grades, something like this. You should be able to tell. That's all.
Praharsh, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, when we started with the introduction there, it says this ability test is either to conduct assist for a group or to a subject, right?
Correct.
When you say to a group, does it mean that there's one booklet given to a
No,
group and they do it together, or is it like a group of people
no.
doing
When there
assessment?
are a group of
Everyone
people,
in a
the
class, for
number of
example.
people individually gets a booklet.
Okay, so here's an observation, and you guys can correct me. I'm wondering, why do we do a percentile of this if we are assessing a single subject? My understanding is a percentile is to actually have a comparison if you have a group of people to say, well, like how you concluded, right? You said if you are 30, that means there are 29 people below you and 70 people above you. If you're doing this for an individual, does that still hold good, or a percentage with the qualitative rating of average or good is a good? I'm trying
Ranjitji,
to understand their theory
Ranjitji,
behind this.
when you take an exam in school or college, no matter if you're sitting individually or taking it, and or you're sitting in a group and taking it, your scores are ultimately converted into a percentage, right? This
Correct.
is similar to that. It is to give you a general idea. You might not remember the score, but a percentage will tell you where you stand in a group, right? Among 100 people, you're at this position. That is what your percentage says.
Yeah, see, so that is relative to a class, right? We have 100 people in a class, and we are trying to
No.
say that
That
that's like
that
a
is
rank
that
order.
is where you are going probably sideways. That's not how these numbers are calculated. Any standard table is created out of a large number of tests. So this test, for example, without those tables, should have been given to a large number of subjects, let's say 10,000, across cultures, across languages, across, let's say, geographies. And the scores that were obtained from those tests has to be collected without this table.
Right.
Then from there, we'll get a percentile numbers. So we know that out of 10,000, this is how it is. Now, again, to get a table like that, that has to match against internal and external validity. Means this exam, for example, this 100 questions will be actually out of 1,000 questions randomly. It won't be same questions all the time. A battery will have multiple questions and subdivisions of it. And if the same set of 10,000 people are given randomly another set, similar scores are expected. So internal validity example and external validity. So same people who are doing it in one region, the comparison, another region comparison, all that has to match. All that has to happen to derive this kind of tables. Standard tables are not something like you give it to 100 people in a class and derive. That's not how they're done.
Okay. Okay.
And
yeah.
One question to further bring the clarity, right? I mean, this is to introspect on the same aspect. Under what scenario you would actually conduct this particular test?
Correct.
Here we are not trying to test the hypothesis. Are we saying that somebody came for a counseling session to you and asked, okay, what is my intelligence level? Is that the scenario?
No.
When you will conduct this test? Anyway, you are not doing research, because research is already done and it is established that if somebody is scoring 90 correct, they stand so and so in the percentile. So you are measuring the intelligence. So under what scenario you are actually doing this?
You can probably do this to know which intelligence you're more prominent at. If you see, all your questions are split, right? There's mathematical, there's logical, and there are other aspects to these questions as well. This can or might be to see which one you're
Okay,
good
okay.
at.
So may not be. I mean, I'll tell my interpretation when exactly this could be used. I mean, see here. I mean, may not be that we are actually checking which types of intelligence. It might not be falling under multiple intelligence here, because ultimately in the result, right, we are not classifying. We are not saying that you are doing well in the quantitative and you are not doing well in the English related thing. We are not quantifying it. We are just telling that, okay, this is where you stand.
General mental ability, right? It's not quantitative mental ability, it's general mental
Exactly.
ability.
Right.
And my interpretation, when exactly this would be done, is let's say you are doing some hypothesis which says that intelligence is linked with creativity. I'm just giving a statement saying that high intelligent people has got let's say low creativity or something you want to actually prove. Now, if you have to prove that hypothesis, you will have to measure intelligence. So that means the subjects that you take, you will have to conduct this test and make this course and then say that, okay, yeah, person one has got high intelligence, person two has got low intelligence. Okay, now again, you will conduct a test on the creativity test, and then you will measure creativity as well. Now you do correlation or whatever relevant algorithms are to do it. So this is just to use to measure intelligence wherever there is something that you would want to do with intelligence. That's what my
Obviously, I will
guess
give
is.
you a couple of scenarios where this is useful. One is a very common scenario like CAT exam is actually a version of intelligence test, EMA test, something of the sort, but not very general, specific to the, let's say, study curriculum, things like that. But that again is a version of a mental ability test. Second one, if kids are having some, let's say a child is not speaking fluently, his linguistic skills are not well developed even when he is like, let's say 8 years old. If you take them for Niemanns and all that, they will actually ask so many questions to the kid. Okay,
Yeah.
again they have to evaluate the mental ability of the kid, right?
Yeah.
Then they
I think,
will start analyzing the specifics of it,
Yeah,
language
that's
specific questions.
correct.
So
yeah.
all those are scenarios where general mental ability test can be used.
Correct. I mean, either in the counseling session
Yeah,
or else in the
in selection
hypothesis,
processes.
which is
Right.
Yes,
where
In fact, I
intelligence
think,
needs to be measured, or like job interviews or whatever, like Mridula said, and you
precisely.
also
Yes,
told about the cat.
yeah, there in
yes,
fact, I think variations, right? If you take the CAT example, it's a context specific
definitely.
ability test. I
Yes.
get the whole gist of how GMAT was done and
Mhm.
the whole research that was done to actually arrive at the percentile.
Mhm.
The reason I digressed and got into this discussion was the difference between actually doing this to a group versus a single subject, right? If you were assessing a group versus a subject, what exactly would be the difference? Is we are still end up giving individually their scores and their rating. That's what
Correct.
counts, right? It doesn't.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the
Yeah.
context of the practicals, I wanted to know if we have to know something as how it is administered differently to a group versus a subject, single subject.
It's same. The instructions are same basically for both.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions, doubts?
I'm going to stop recording first. I think that's.
Yes. Yes. I think good enough. Thank